welcome to Global Scan, your one-stop destination for a roundup of all the major global developments of the week. The United States has become the 101st member of International Solar Alliance amid all the hectic action at the COP26 in Glasgow. India hosted national security advisors or secretaries of security councils from Afghanistan's neighbors to discuss the humanitarian and security situation in Afghanistan at the Delhi Regional Security Dialogue for Afghanistan. And all the action from the T20CWC Cricket World Cup and the upcoming 52nd International Film Festival of India. All that and more in Global Scan. I'm Undun Bhattacharya. Let's get started with the top stories. Prime Minister Narendra Modi lays the foundation stone of four-laning of key sections of Sant Dhyaneshwar Maharaj Palki Marg and Sant Tukaram Maharaj Palki Marg in Pandharpur in Maharashtra. Inaugurates multiple road projects. Calls for the temple town to be transformed into India's top religious destination. Third Regional Security Dialogue on Afghanistan adopts Delhi Declaration. Participating nations express support for a peaceful, secure and stable Afghanistan, strongly condemn terrorism in all forms and manifestations, agree that Afghan territory should not be used for sheltering, trading, planning or financing terrorist acts. India reacts to Chinese construction activities along the border, asserts India has neither accepted illegal occupation of its territory nor accepted unjustified Chinese territorial claims. The United States becomes the 101st member of the International Solar Alliance. Biden's climate envoy John Kerry says US is happy to join the alliance set up by PM Modi. India's Environment Minister Bhupendra Yadav says the move will strengthen ISA and propel future action on clean energy. Australia to lock horns with New Zealand in T20 Cricket World Cup final on 14th November at the Dubai International Stadium. Let's begin with news from Asia. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi this week virtually laid the foundation stone for road projects and dedicated various highway and road projects aimed at improving connectivity to the temple town of Pandharpur in Maharashtra. The projects are designed to facilitate a pilgrim's journey to Pandharpur, a town associated with Sant Tukaram and Sant Dhyaneshwar. On the occasion, the Prime Minister urged devotees to plant trees, make drinking water arrangements and make Pandharpur the cleanest place of pilgrimage. Here are some of the takeaways from the ceremony.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi laid the foundation stone and dedicated various national highway and road projects to the nation through video conference. Prime Minister laid the foundation stone of Sri Sant Dhyaneshwar Maharaj Palki Marg and Sant Tukaram Maharaj Palki Marg. The construction of Sri Sant Dhyaneshwar Maharaj Palki Marg will be done in 5 phases and the construction of Sant Tukaram Maharaj Palki Marg will be completed in 3 phases. Prime Minister said that these projects will lead to better connectivity with the region and paid his respects to devotees, saints and Lord Vittal for their blessings for the projects.
हम जब पंढरपुर जैसे अपने तीर्थों का विकास करते हैं तो उससे केवल सांस्कृतिक प्रगति नहीं होती, पूरे क्षेत्र के विकास को बल मिलता है। जो सड़कें यहां चौड़ी हो रही हैं, जो नए हाईवे स्वीकृत हो रहे हैं, उसमें यहां धार्मिक पर्यटन बढ़ेगा, नए रोजगार आएंगे और सेवा अभियानों को भी गति मिलेगी।
Reflecting on the spiritual richness of India, Prime Minister said that for him, the service to Pandharpur is service to Sri Narayan Hari. He said this is the land where the Lord resides even today for the sake of the devotees. This is the land about which Sant Namdev Ji Maharaj has said that Pandharpur was there when the world was not even created.
मैं भविष्य में पंढरपुर को भारत के सबसे स्वच्छ तीर्थ स्थलों में देखना चाहता हूं। हिंदुस्तान में जब भी कोई देखे कि भाई सबसे स्वच्छ तीर्थ स्थल कौन सा है, तो सबसे पहले नाम मेरे विठोबा का, मेरे विठल की भूमि का, मेरे पंढरपुर का होना चाहिए। ये चीज मैं आपसे चाहता हूं और ये काम भी जन भागीदारी से ही होगा। जब स्थानीय लोग स्वच्छता के आंदोलन का नेतृत्व अपनी कमान में लेंगे, तभी हम इस सपने को साकार कर पाएंगे।
The Prime Minister said that the court of Lord Vittal is open to everyone. He added that when I say Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas, the same sentiment is behind it. This spirit inspires us for the development of the country, takes everyone along, inspires us for the development of all. The Prime Minister noted that the speciality of India is that from time to time in different regions, such great personalities kept emerging and showing the direction for the country. Commenting on the social significance of the Warkari movement, the Prime Minister singled out the participation of women in the Yatra with the same zeal as men, as the key feature of the tradition. With Yogesh Sheetal from Pandharpur, Katidi, India.
National security advisors or secretaries of security councils from Afghanistan's neighbors, with the notable exceptions of China and Pakistan, gathered in New Delhi on Wednesday to discuss the security and humanitarian situation in Taliban-ruled Afghanistan and reach a common understanding on the way forward amid a deepening humanitarian crisis there. Convened less than 3 months after the withdrawal of the last US and Western forces from Kabul, the Delhi Regional Security Dialogue for Afghanistan was attended by representatives from India, Iran, Russia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan. Here's what the delegates agreed on.
India hosted the Delhi Regional Security Dialogue on Afghanistan on Wednesday. This is the third regional dialogue in the NSA Secretaries of Security Council format on the subject of Afghanistan. The other two were hosted by Iran prior to the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan. This is the first meeting since the Taliban takeover and is also the first time all Central Asian countries, not just Afghanistan's immediate land neighbors, are participating in this format. Iran, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyz Republic, Russia, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan participated in the dialogue. The Delhi Declaration expressed deep concern over suffering of Afghan people and condemned terrorist attacks in Kunduz, Kandahar and Kabul. It stressed on the necessity of forming an open, truly inclusive government representing the will of all Afghan people. Inclusion of all sections of society and administrative and political structure also found place in the declaration. It condemned in the strongest terms all terrorist activities. The leaders reiterated strong support for a peaceful, secure and stable Afghanistan respecting its sovereignty, unity and territorial integrity, non-interference in its internal affairs. Afghan territory should not be used for sheltering, training, planning and financing terrorist acts. Reaffirmed firm commitment to combat terrorism in all its forms and manifestations, combat terror financing, work towards dismantling of terrorist infrastructure, counter radicalization and ensure Afghanistan never becomes a safe haven for global terrorism, collective cooperation against radicalization, extremism, separatism and drug trafficking. Fundamental rights of women, children and minority communities should not be violated. Provide urgent humanitarian assistance to people of Afghanistan. Humanitarian assistance should be unimpeded, direct and assured. Provide assistance to prevent the spread of COVID-19 in Afghanistan. Host NSA Ajit Doval pointed out the importance of close consultations and greater cooperation among the regional countries. He hoped the deliberations would contribute to helping the people of Afghanistan.
We all have been keenly watching the developments in that country. These have important implications not only for the people of Afghanistan, but also for its neighbors and the region. This is the time for close consultations amongst us, greater cooperation and interaction and coordination among the regional countries.
All partner nations held fast to principles that would support a stable Afghanistan.
The current situation creates extra risk and possibility for growth of drug trafficking, terrorism and criminality. The situation on the Tajik and Afghan border remains complicated, and we as the neighboring country are ready to participate in all programs that can help to the people of Afghanistan.
Basically, in Afghanistan, you have just crisis, the crisis of migration and refugees. And the solution comes only through the formation of an inclusive government with the participation of all ethnic groups.
We are also convinced that such dialogue mechanisms should not duplicate the work of each other, but rather complement each other.
The countries agreed to remain engaged with each other in the future and will hold the next round of their dialogue in 2022. They also called on Prime Minister Narendra Modi after their meeting and apprised him of their deliberations. This is the third regional security dialogue on Afghanistan. The first two meetings in Iran were in September 2018 and December 2019 at Needy, India.
Commenting on China's construction activities in the past several years along the border with India, including in areas it has illegally occupied over the years, the spokesperson of India's Ministry of External Affairs, Arindam Bagchi, asserted that India has neither accepted the illegal occupation of Indian territory by China nor China's unjustified claims. He added that the government is committed to the objective of creating infrastructure along border areas for improvement of livelihood, including in Arunachal Pradesh, and that it keeps a constant watch on developments having a bearing on India's security and takes all measures to safeguard India's sovereignty and territorial integrity.
Reports had also appeared in the media earlier this year on this issue. As we had stated then, China has undertaken construction activities in the past several years along the border areas, including in the areas that it has illegally occupied over decades. India has neither accepted such illegal occupation of our territory, nor has it accepted the unjustified Chinese claims. Government has always conveyed its strong protest to such activities through diplomatic means and will continue to do so in the future.
India's MOA spokesperson Arindam Bagchi also said that 1,500 Indian pilgrims will visit Gurudwaras in Pakistan through the Atari Wagah transit point from 17th to 26th November in view of Guru Purab. He said Pakistan had earlier denied permission for the visit of Sikh pilgrims from India to that country twice in June, the first time on the occasion of Martyrdom Day of Guru Arjan Dev and the second time on the death anniversary of Maharaja Ranjit Singh.
We all are aware that movement to the Kartarpur corridor was suspended in March 2020 due to COVID-19 pandemic. Land travel between India and Pakistan is since being conducted on a limited scale through the Atari Wagah integrated checkpost in coordination with the Pakistani side, and both sides follow their own extant rules and health guidelines. In view of the significance of Guru Purab and the sentiments associated with it, it has been decided that a jatha of around 1,500 pilgrims will visit Pakistan from November 17 to 26 this year via the Atari Wagah ICP. This visit is covered under the 1974 bilateral protocol between India and Pakistan on visits to religious shrines. The pilgrims are scheduled to visit Gurudwara Shri Darbar Sahib, Gurudwara Shri Panja Sahib, Gurudwara Shri Dehra Sahib, Gurudwara Shri Nankana Sahib, Gurudwara Shri Kartarpur Sahib, and Gurudwara Shri Sacha Sauda.
Continuing a tradition that started in 1950, Nepal's Army Chief General Prabhu Ram Sharma was conferred with the honorary rank of General of the Indian Army by President Ramnath Kovind. Nepal is important for India in the context of its overall strategic interests in the region, and India-Nepal military cooperation is an important facet of bilateral ties.
A ceremonial occasion that holds huge import in the current geopolitical context. President Ramnath Kovind conferred the honorary rank of General of the Indian Army to the Nepal Army Chief General Prabhu Ram Sharma. Earlier last year, Indian Army Chief General M.M. Naravane too was conferred the honorary rank of General of the Nepali Army by the President of Nepal, Bidya Devi Bhandari. The tradition of conferring the rank of Honorary General to the Chiefs of Army of Nepal and India started in 1950, with General K.M. Cariappa being the first Indian Army Chief to be decorated with the highest army title of Nepal. It reflects the close ties between the Indian and Nepalese armies and the deep trust and understanding between the two nations. Talking of India-Nepal military cooperation, the bonds are ancient, but continue to be reinvigorated with time. India has been assisting the Nepal Army in its modernization by supplying equipment and providing training. The Indo-Nepal battalion-level joint military exercise Surya Kiran is conducted alternately in India and Nepal. The 15th Surya Kiran exercise was held in September in Uttarakhand. In 2015, India was one of the first countries to respond to the devastating earthquake of 7.9 magnitude that hit Nepal. The joint operation of the Indian Army and the Indian Air Force displayed India's deepest commitment towards Nepal. During the peak of the COVID pandemic, the Indian Army provided medical equipment worth 42 crore Nepali rupees and to the two field hospitals of Nepal's army during the visit of the Indian Army Chief last year. The Indian Army also gifted 1 lakh doses of COVID-19 vaccines to the Nepalese Army in 2021. The Gorkha regiments of the Indian Army are raised partly by recruitment from hill districts of Nepal. Currently, about 32,000 Gorkha soldiers from Nepal are serving in the Indian Army. The Nepalese Army Chief's 4-day visit takes forward the revival of India-Nepal ties that was achieved when the Indian Army Chief General Naravane visited the country last year in November. With Sudhir Yadav, DD India.
President Ram Nath Kovind conferred Padma Awards at a civil investiture ceremony at Rashtrapati Bhavan this week. Vice President Venkaiah Naidu, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar and other dignitaries attended the ceremony. The government had announced 141 Padma Awards on the eve of the Republic Day in 2020. The list comprises 7 Padma Vibhushan, 16 Padma Bhushan and 118 Padmashree Awards. Former Union Ministers Arun Jaitley, George Fernandes and Sushma Swaraj were conferred with the Padma Vibhushan posthumously, along with classical singer Pandit Channu Lal Mishra and former PM and President of Mauritius Anirudh Jugnauth. Arun Jaitley's wife Sangeeta Jaitley and Sushma Swaraj's daughter Basuri Swaraj received the honour from the President. Veteran boxer from Manipur, Mary Kom and spiritual leader of Pejawar Mutt, Vishwesh Tirth Swami was also honoured with the Padma Vibhushan. Those who were conferred with the Padma Bhushan include Muzaffar Hussain Beg from JNK, Anil Prakash Joshi from Uttarakhand, Balkrishna Doshi from Gujarat, badminton player PV Sindhu, former Chief Minister of Goa Manohar Parrikar and US-based scholar Jagdish Seth. Prominent personalities who were given Padmashree Awards include captain of women's hockey team Rani Rampal, singer Adnan Sami, former head scientist ICMR Dr. Raman Gangakhetkar, Air Marshal Dr. Padma Bandyopadhyay, actress Kangana Ranaut and Dr. Leela Joshi for medicine. The President of India conferred Padma Awards over 2 consecutive days. On the second day, some of those who were honoured were veteran sculptor Sudarshan Sahu, who was awarded Padma Vibhushan for his contribution to the field of art, former Lok Sabha Speaker Sumitra Mahajan and veteran IAS officer Nripendra Mishra, who were awarded the Padma Bhushan, and India's leading dwarf para-athlete K.Y. Venkatesh and Bangladesh Liberation War veteran Lieutenant Colonel Qazi Sajjad Ali Zahir, who were awarded the Padmashree.
Continuing the award presentation of the prestigious Padma Awards for a second day, President Ram Nath Kovind on Tuesday conferred awards to veteran sculptor Sudarshan Sahu, former Lok Sabha Speaker Sumitra Mahajan and many others at the civil investiture ceremony too at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. Sudarshan Sahu, who hails from Odisha, was awarded the Padma Vibhushan for his contribution in the field of art. Veteran doctor and educationist from Kerala, Bele Monappa Hegde, and archaeology legend B.B. Lal were also awarded the Padma Vibhushan. Receiving the Padma Bhushan was Sumitra Mahajan, India's first 8-time woman MP, and Nripendra Mishra, veteran Indian Administrative Service officer, who were honoured for their contribution to public affairs and civil service. Former Assam Chief Minister Tarun Gogoi was posthumously honoured with the Padma Bhushan. The award was received by his wife. Social worker from Assam Lakhimi Barua, Professor Jai Bhagwan Goyal, the Hindi literature from Haryana's Kurukshetra, Manganiyar folk singer from Rajasthan Lakha Khan, Acclaimed Carnatic vocalist Bombay Jayashree Ramnath, senior orthopedic surgeon from Dehradun Bhupendra Kumar Singh Sanjay, and noted Hindi professor and journalist from Srinagar Chaman Lal Sapru were given Padmashree Awards. Rajasthan-based Pali writer Arjun Singh Shekhawat, foremost authorities on Sanskrit Vyakaran Ram Yatna Shukla, Delhi-based social worker Jitendra Singh Shanti, steeplechase athlete Sudha Singh, veteran Hindi writer from Bihar Mridula Sinha posthumous, gearman of Coimbatore P. Subramaniam posthumous, social worker from West Bengal Guruma Kamali Soren, and tribal folk culture scholar from Bhopal Kapil Tiwari were also the recipients of the Padmashree Awards. India's leading dwarf para-athlete K.Y. Venkatesh and Bangladesh Liberation War veteran Lieutenant Colonel Qazi Sajjad Ali Zahid were also honoured with the Padmashree by the President. The Padma Awards are given in 3 categories: Padma Vibhushan, Padma Bhushan and Padmashree, and are announced annually on the eve of the Republic Day. With Sudhir Yadav, DD India.
Now we get you news from Europe. In what may be a major boost to ongoing efforts to increase footprints of solar power globally, the United States on Wednesday joined the International Solar Alliance, launched and promoted by India and France 6 years ago as its 101st member country, giving significant heft to the initiative. That happened at the COP26 venue in Glasgow. Meanwhile, at the same summit, Government of India's Science and Technology Minister Dr. Jitendra Singh addressed the Mission Innovation Initiative, where he highlighted the Indo-Dutch effort of integrated biorefineries to scale up clean energy solutions at affordable cost. Mission Innovation is actively engaged in scaling up clean energy solutions. Here's more on both the developments.
In a big boost to accelerate global adoption of solar energy, the United States of America, USA, has become the 101st country to join the International Solar Alliance, ISA, to catalyze global energy transition through a solar-led approach. Signing the framework agreement, US Special Presidential Envoy for Climate John Kerry said, "It has long been coming and we are happy to join the International Solar Alliance, which Prime Minister Narendra Modi took the lead in making. This will be an important contribution to more rapid deployment of solar energy globally." India, in turn, welcomed the USA as the 101st member of the ISA. Union Cabinet Minister for Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Bhupender Yadav, said this move will strengthen the ISA and propel future action on providing a clean source of energy to the world. Earlier at COP26, the United States also joined the steering committee of the Green Grid Initiative, One Sun, One World, One Grid, comprising of 5 members, the USA, Australia, France, the United Kingdom and India, and endorsed the One Sun Declaration along with 80 countries. India has called for a commitment from the global clean energy community for access to sustainable fuels, chemicals and materials to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and achieve global climate goals as one of the mitigation measures. Addressing the Mission Innovation Initiative at COP26 on Tuesday, Union Minister for Science and Technology Dr. Jitendra Singh drew attention to the efforts made by India and the Netherlands along with Mission Innovation members in taking forward the Mission Innovation 2.0. The two nations launched mission integrated biorefineries to scale up clean energy solutions at an affordable cost. The minister said India, through Mission Innovation, is actively engaged in collaborative efforts to catalyze inspiring innovation goals that will lead to affordable and scale up of clean energy solutions.
India, with the Netherlands, aims to leverage its extensive experience in research and innovation, support for the startup ecosystem, international collaborations through the launch of Mission Integrated Biorefineries. The Mission Integrated Biorefineries brings together a dynamic and a delivery-focused alliance of countries, the private sector, the research institutes, and the civil society to accelerate innovation in renewable fuels, chemicals, and materials for a low-carbon future.
22 governments and the European Commission, collaborating through Mission Innovation, announced 4 groundbreaking missions to catalyze investment and action to make the clean energy technologies which will decarbonize sectors. Mission-integrated biorefineries is one among them. The missions announced by ministers from the US, India, Saudi Arabia, Canada, Australia, Austria, the Netherlands and the European Commission will accelerate technologies to facilitate urban transitions, enable carbon dioxide removal and produce renewable fuels, chemicals and materials. Combined with 3 missions first announced in June 2021 on power systems, hydrogen and shipping, they have the potential to unlock affordable decarbonization pathways for sectors responsible for 52% of the current global emissions. This will accelerate progress towards the Paris Agreement goals and pathways to net zero. On Wednesday at COP26, global auto players including ministers, vehicle manufacturers and business leaders have gathered to show their commitment to a zero-emission road transport future by 2040 or earlier. Transport Day at COP26 will also try to secure commitments on lowering emissions in aviation and shipping. A shift to zero-emission vehicles is already underway, creating new jobs, bringing cleaner air to cities and increasingly cutting the costs of car ownership. To meet the goals of the Paris Agreement, this transition needs to happen much more quickly. It must include not only cars, but vans, buses, trucks and lorries. DD India.
At the COP26, the focus was also on gender equality, and the message that went out was that the fight against climate change must be closely connected to the fight against gender inequality. Here's more on that.
COP26 summit turns its focus on gender equality and science on Tuesday, highlighting the role of women and of technological innovation in addressing climate change. To open a plenary session on gender, puppet of a Syrian refugee girl, Little Amal, appeared on stage at the United Nations COP26 Climate Summit in Glasgow. Amal was accompanied by Samoan climate activist Brianna Fruin, and the two exchanged gifts. Fruin gave Amal a safflower and received seeds, both representing hope for the future. The fight against climate change must be closely connected to the fight against gender inequality, the agency UN Women said in a statement. The Women's Rights Agency of the United Nations said ensuring women's and girls' leadership was vital if global efforts to tackle climate change are to succeed. Women and girls are disproportionately affected by climate change and face greater risks and burdens from its impacts, particularly in situations of poverty, United Nations Women said. The agency called for full and effective participation and leadership in policy and decision-making at community, national and international levels, and to increase ambition in all sectors. The 10th day of the Climate Summit will also tackle science and technological innovations in the fight against climate change. Speaker of the United States House of Representatives Nancy Pelosi is leading a congressional delegation to participate in bilateral meetings, panel discussions and other engagements with global leaders on top climate priorities. Science and innovation are essential to develop and scale solutions to limit global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius and adapt to the current and future impacts of climate change, the United Nations Climate Change Conference's presidency said. It stressed the need for a collaborative, inclusive and multidisciplinary approach in research and innovation to ensure affordable and accessible solutions. The COP26 presidency are leading a program in collaboration with academics and global citizens to explore opportunities for achieving a net zero future, another program that promotes climate change risk assessment for governments, and a third program that seeks ambitious country commitments to build resilient and sustainable health systems. DD India.
Let's take a look at news from the Americas. NASA and SpaceX launched 4 more astronauts on a flight to the International Space Station late on Wednesday. The crew includes a veteran space worker and 2 younger crewmates chosen to join NASA's forthcoming lunar missions. The SpaceX-built launch vehicle, consisting of a Crew Dragon capsule, perched atop a 2-stage Falcon 9 rocket, climbed into the night sky from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida as its 9 Merlin engines rode to life. The flight marks the 3rd operational space station crew sent to orbit aboard a Dragon capsule since NASA and SpaceX teamed up to resume space launches from American soil last year, following a 9-year hiatus at the end of US Space Shuttle program in 2011. It is the 4th crewed flight overall in 17 months under NASA's public-private partnership with SpaceX. As the US on Monday opened its doors to foreign national air travelers who have been vaccinated against coronavirus, there were emotional scenes of reunion of friends and family all across the international airports and land border crossings. Visitors can enter the country but will have to show proof of vaccination as well as a recent negative COVID-19 test result. Many families that have been separated by the restrictive rules since the beginning of the pandemic reunited with their loved ones.
US airports witnessed emotional airport reunions as COVID travel ban ended and people were able to reunite with families. For many arriving on packed flights from Europe or lining up at border crossings in Canada and Mexico, Monday's was an emotional journey that ended in the arms of joyful relatives clutching flowers, balloons and homemade signs. How do you describe this feeling? Those were the words of Bhavna Patel at John F. Kennedy Airport Monday as she met her grandson for the first time after the first intercontinental flights touched following the lifting of COVID-19 restrictions. For over a year, Bhavna Patel watched her first grandchild grow via FaceTime, talking to him in New York every day while the US travel restrictions prevented her from making the trip from London. She said she was too excited to sleep, counting down days, hours and minutes before meeting her grandson Kai. On Monday, she teared up as she experienced her first in-person grandmother embrace.
Just elated, there's no words. I don't have any words.
Also at John F. Kennedy International Airport in New York, a child held a sign reading, "Do I look bigger?" as he waited for the first British Airways flight from London's Heathrow on 7:30 days, "Missed you. Auntie Jill plus Uncle Mark," his sign said. Aisha Matthews struggled to hold back tears after her mother and sister arrived at New York's JFK Airport on Monday, fresh off the first British Airways flight from London's Heathrow. Aisha was holding her toddler Adam and her husband Vincent was pushing a stroller with their infant, 3-month-old Aaron, whom her mother and sister were meeting for the first time.
15 months, and they haven't seen, she hasn't met him before, so it's the first time, and she hasn't seen her mom or sisters in 15 months, so this is surreal and we're happy it's here.
Months of pent-up demand triggered a major spike in bookings on Monday, with travelers only required to show official proof of vaccination and a recent negative viral test. Travel bookings for the holiday season in the United States continue to rise rapidly. British Airways is marking the reopening of the Europe to US route with a first flight reserved for friends and families separated during the pandemic.
You can see the buzz around JFK today, and a lot of lovely stories about people reuniting for the first time in nearly 2 years. Today we're flying to 17 cities in the United States. By December we will increase that to 23. So we're looking to build quickly to restore those travel links and to make sure that we capitalise on this recovery. So yes, I think it's an important milestone and an important turning point. I think we've made more progress in the last 5 or 6 weeks than we did in the previous 17. And I think it recognises the importance of aviation and rebuilding our economies. And also I think recognises the progress we've made in allowing travel to be reinstated safely.
There were emotional scenes at other airports too, including at Dulles Airport in Virginia as families separated by COVID travel restrictions finally reunited. Long separated families and friends were among the first to cross the Mexico-United States border as it was reopened to non-essential travel on Monday. And even though many were celebrating the new measure as homecoming, the border remains closed to countless others. Starting November 8th, non-essential travel resumed across the Mexico-United States land border for those fully vaccinated with appropriate documents for entry. By January, those crossing the land border for both essential and non-essential reasons will be required to be fully vaccinated. Restrictions on non-US citizens were first imposed on air travels from China in January 2020 by then-President Donald Trump, and then extended to dozens of other countries without any clear metrics for how and when to lift them. US allies had heavily lobbied the Biden administration to lift the rules. While cheering the resumption of the two-way transatlantic traffic, airline officials stressed that tourism and family trips alone will not be enough for carriers whose profits depend on filling the most expensive seats. DD India.
Here's how the world is continuing to combat COVID-19 in COVID scare.
French President Emmanuel Macron said on Tuesday that those aged 65 and older will need to present proof of a COVID-19 booster shot from mid-December for health passes that give access to restaurants, trains and planes to remain valid. The third shot, so far available only for people older than 65 and the vulnerable, will be from early December to be available for the 50 to 64 age group. Macron said Europe was seeing a fifth wave of coronavirus infections and that in France there had been an alarming rise in the number of COVID-19 hospital patients and in the spread of cases. Germany on Monday recorded the highest 7-day COVID-19 incident rate since the start of the pandemic, according to the Robert Koch Institute for Infectious Diseases. The incidence rate increased to 201.1 cases per 100,000 inhabitants, according to the RKI. The previous record of 197.6 was set during the second COVID-19 wave in December last year. Although Germany is far from achieving herd immunity, the country's vaccination campaign has slowed down. Shops and malls in New Zealand's biggest city, Auckland, flung their doors open for the first time in 3 months on Wednesday as the city, which is at the epicenter of the country's coronavirus outbreak, gradually reopened. Retail stores filled up within hours of reopening due to pent-up demand, while some shoppers reportedly queued up outside malls overnight to take advantage of early bird offers at some stores. Libraries, museums and zoos were also allowed to receive visitors as the government eased coronavirus restrictions amid a pickup in vaccination rates and due to mounting pressure from critics calling for more freedom. The hospitality sector, however, remained shut. EU authorities say there is no conclusive evidence of a cancer risk from synthetic face masks and have urged people to keep wearing them after a Belgian study warned last month they may contain carcinogens. Face masks are widely considered crucial tools to reduce the spread of COVID-19 and have become an everyday item for a large part of the world's population through the pandemic. According to the Belgian study, nanoparticles of titanium dioxide were found in masks made of non-woven synthetic fabrics and in those containing nylon and polyester fibers. The report's preliminary findings say a health risk was possible for many of the examined face masks, but said more research was needed. It recommended use of titanium dioxide in face masks be limited until there was conclusive evidence. Israel's Pandemic Advisory Board on Wednesday backed administering Pfizer's and BioNTech's COVID-19 vaccine to children aged 5 to 11, according to health officials. The health ministry is widely expected to accept the panel's recommendation and begin rolling out the shots this month. US Food and Drug Administration has granted emergency use authorization of the vaccine for the age group at a 10 microgram dose. Israel's 9.4 million population is relatively young, with around 1.2 million children aged 5 to 11, and health officials are doubtful that the country could reach herd immunity without children being vaccinated. Global Scan Desk, DD India.
A look now at some more global news developments in Fast Forward.
Benin's President Patrice Talon met with his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron on Tuesday as the return of 26 artworks looted from the former French colony was formally agreed. The 26 artifacts were stolen from the Kingdom of Abomi in the year 1892. France and Benin sealed return of 26 stolen artworks. The handover marks a milestone in the years-long fight by African countries to recover pillaged works, and at a time when numerous European institutions are grappling with the cultural legacies of colonialism. Belarusian State Border Committee showed on Wednesday night shots filmed in the migrants' camp at Belarus-Poland border. The video footage showed injured people sitting near the campfire and lying inside the tent. Hundreds have set up camp along the border where razor wire fences and Polish soldiers have repeatedly blocked their entry into the European Union. Poland and other EU states accuse Belarus of encouraging the migrants from the Middle East, Afghanistan and Africa to illegally cross the frontier in revenge for sanctions slammed on Minsk over human rights abuses. Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko's government, which is backed by Russia, denies engineering the migrants' crisis and blames Europe and the United States for the plight of the people stranded at the border. Sudan's main civilian political coalition rejected any negotiation with the military on Wednesday, holding to its position at its first press conference since a coup on 25th October led by General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. A statement read at the press conference attributed to spokesman Al-Wathik al-Birair said the Forces of Freedom and Change, which had signed a 2019 power-sharing agreement with the military following the ouster of dictator Omar al-Bashir, rejected the coup and had not met with the military. The coalition said it supported Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok, who is under house arrest, but had not met with him, and joined him in demanding a return to pre-coup conditions. Mediation attempts since the takeover have stalled, and while lower-level appointments have been made, neither a cabinet or head of the state sovereign council have been named. Burhan has said he is committed to the democratic transition and elections in July 2023. Climate is a common challenge faced by humanity and will impact the well-being of future generations. It's becoming increasingly urgent and severe, turning a future challenge into a crisis happening now. In the area of climate change, there is more agreement between China and the US than divergence, making it an area with huge potential for cooperation. With 2 days remaining until the end of the summit, we hope this joint declaration will be China and US's contribution to its success.
Climate is a common challenge faced by humanity and will impact the well-being of future generations. It's becoming increasingly urgent and severe, turning a future challenge into a crisis happening now. In the area of climate change, there is more agreement between China and the US than divergence, making it an area with a huge potential for cooperation. With 2 days remaining until the end of the summit, we hope this joint declaration will be China and US's contribution to its success.
US climate envoy John Kerry, meanwhile, said the agreement with China was a statement of support for a successful United Nations climate summit, with both taking a step towards closing the emissions gap. Kerry said the US and China had no shortage of differences, but on climate, cooperation is the only way to get this job done. EU climate policy chief Frans Timmermans said it was really encouraging to see China and the US working together.
Now, the two largest economies in the world have agreed to work together to raise climate ambition in this decisive decade. Together, we set out our support for a successful COP26, including certain elements that will promote ambition. But let me be clear, this declaration is a step that we can build on in order to help close the gap. The United States and China have no shortage of differences, but on climate, cooperation is the only way to get this job done. This is not a discretionary thing, frankly. This is science. It's math and physics that dictate the road that we have to travel.
That's good news. It's really encouraging to see that those countries who were at odds in so many areas have found common ground on what is the biggest challenge humanity faces today. It shows that also the US and China know this subject transcends other issues, and it certainly helps us here at COP to come to an agreement.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson urged world leaders on Wednesday to go further in their pledges at the climate conference in Glasgow, saying the goal of limiting the global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius remained within the reach. He said a UN climate change summit had made progress towards halting runaway global warming, but more was needed to seal a deal. With only days left at the United Nations COP26 summit, Johnson travelled to Scotland to try to chivvy other leaders to hand their negotiators more room to reach agreement on thorniest issues of finance and emissions targets. Johnson's intervention in the frantic final hours of the two-week summit in Glasgow came as a draft text urged countries to boost their emissions cutting goals by 2022. The summit is hoping to build on the landmark 2015 Paris Agreement, which called for capping global warming at well below 2.0 Celsius above pre-industrial levels and ideally 1.5 Celsius. Little Amal, a 3.5-meter puppet depicting a Syrian refugee girl, met storm a giant sea goddess on Wednesday outside the COP26 summit in Glasgow. After walking thousands of miles across Europe, Little Amal reached the UN summit of 9th of November to raise awareness of the plight of refugee children on the front line of climate change. She interacted outside the venue with Storm, who is 10 meters tall and made entirely of recycled materials collected from washed-up marine litter. Little Amal represents hundreds and thousands of people displaced by climate change or other causes, said Tracy Seawood from the Walk, the organization behind the puppet's journey. Global Scan Desk, DD India.
Now we take a look at stories that make news but not headlines in Beyond Headlines.
Scores of colourful hot air balloons filled the skyline of Turkey's ancient Cappadocia region on Sunday. A time-lapse video captured the balloons as they painted over the unique volcanic rock landscapes. The clear blue sky led viewers to enjoy the scenery in one of the country's most popular tourist destinations. Tens of hot air balloons carrying tourists take off every morning from Cappadocia to catch the sunrise over the famous fairy chimneys. The Ford Oslo Light Festival lit up the city's streets with this year's theme focusing on the environment. The Nobel Peace Center, which every year promotes reflection around important topics, lit up by artist Hotaru Visual Gorilla and their installation called Trans Nature. The biggest installation is The Abyss by French light artist Nicolas Paolozzi, which was inspired by animals living in the deep ocean. The outdoor installations were on display around central Oslo for 3 nights. Archaeologists have uncovered a room at a villa just outside Pompeii containing beds and other objects that shed light on the living conditions of slaves in the ancient Roman city buried by a volcanic eruption. The room, in an excellent state of preservation, contains 3 wooden beds and a series of other objects including amphorae, ceramic pitchers and a chamber pot. Under Roman law, slaves were considered property and had no legal personhood. For the last 5 years, librarian Radin Roro Hendarte has been driving a mobile library, bringing books to children who would otherwise have no access to them in Indonesia's Java island. She is not only fostering a culture of reading among the youth, but she is also reducing neighborhood trash. Radin's trash library allows children to borrow books in exchange for plastic cups, bags and other waste that she collects and sells to buy more books. The 48-year-old originally started her Trash for Books library in her hometown of Muntang in 2014. Response was good at first, but a staff shortage and a tapering of interest put the initiative in jeopardy after a year. Then the local government and library stepped in and gave her a 3-wheel truck and also some more books so that she could take her project on the road. Radin ventures out every weekday, aiming to visit at least 3 different areas. More than 50 years after, we have only just begun, and yesterday once more. Richard Carpenter has both warm and bitter memories of the California soft pop duo with his sister Karen that ruled the charts but got a rough ride from music critics. Now he is telling the story his way in the book Carpenters, the musical legacy. Crammed with photos, posters, programs, reviews and work schedules, it is intended as the comprehensive and definitive story of the 1970s recording stars. After their breakout hit, They Long to Be Close to You in 1970, the Carpenters had a run of hit singles including Top of the World and Rainy Days and Mondays, won 3 Grammy Awards, had their own TV show and turned out 10 albums, winning fans as far afield as Japan, Norway and Zimbabwe. Their career came to a tragic end when Karen died in 1983 of heart failure, attributed to complications from anorexia nervosa. She was 32. A faithful copy of Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa sold for €210,000 at a Paris auction. Leonardo's original can be found in Paris's Louvre Museum, drawing huge crowds to see its enigmatic smile. Art Crucial had estimated that the copy, dating from around 1600 and looking strikingly similar to the original, which is not for sale, would fetch €150,000 to €200,000. In Israel, thousands of pelicans on their exhaustive journey south this autumn are on the hunt for food, and authorities have set up pelican-friendly reservoirs to protect commercial fisheries. The Society for Protection of Nature in Israel estimates that around half of the up to 500 million birds die during the seasonal journey that covers thousands of kilometers. Global Scan Desk, DD India.
Here's a quick glance at all the global sporting action in Sports Scan. In a game-changing turn of events, Australia not only defeated the unbeaten team Pakistan, but changed the game entirely after the 5th over and are now all set to face the Black Caps in the finals of the T20 Cricket World Cup. Take a look at our next report to understand the heroic performance of Team Australia versus Pakistan in the semis of the ICC T20 Cricket World Cup in Dubai.
In the second semi-final of the ICC T20 Cricket World Cup in Dubai, the Australian team defeated the unbeaten team Pakistan at Dubai International Cricket Stadium with a 5 wickets victory. In the beginning of the match, Australian captain Aaron Finch won the toss and elected to bowl first, a decision that every toss-winning team has been taking, considering the dew factor on the pitch. However, the informed Pakistan captain Babar Azam and Mohammad Rizwan proved the Australian captain's decision wrong and gave the team a great start. Both shared a 71-run partnership for the first wicket, but Babar was dismissed as the first wicket after scoring 39 off 34 balls. Rizwan continued the run with Fakhar Zaman, who came after that and added 71 runs for the second wicket and completed his half-century. Later on, he too was dismissed for 67 runs off 52 balls. Fakhar Zaman scored a quick run in the last over, with the help of which Pakistan was able to make 176 for 4 wickets and scored an unbeaten 55 off 32 balls. In reply, chasing the target of 177 runs, the start of the Australian team was not so good. On the third ball of the first over, Shaheen Afridi gave the team the first breakthrough by dismissing captain Finch for 0. David Warner and Mitchell Marsh then put on 51 runs in 36 balls for the second wicket. This partnership was broken by Shadab by dismissing Marsh for 28 runs. However, Warner held on to one end, but he missed his half-century by just 1 run, and Shadab got him in the hands of wicketkeeper Mohammad Rizwan, and Smith 5 with Maxwell 7 was soon returned to the pavilion by Shadab. The Australian team looked to be in trouble after losing 5 wickets for 96 runs. However, after this, Matthew Wade and Marcus Stoinis put on an unbeaten partnership of 81 runs and 41 balls for the 6th wicket to win the match in the 19th over. Wade hit 3 consecutive sixes. Wade contributed 41 not out and Stoinis contributed 40 not out, and in the end Wade was adjudged man of the match. After a game-changing victory, Team Australia has finally entered the ICC T20 Cricket World Cup Grand Finale and are all set to face the calm and composed Black Caps on a super final clash on Sunday, 14th of November at Dubai International Cricket Stadium. Sports Desk, DD India.
And now all the buzz from the world of showbiz. The 52nd International Film Festival of India has released the lineup of international movies for competition at the festival. The best of feature-length fiction films from all over the world are selected to compete in this section. It is one of the most important sections of the festival that features some of the best films of the year, and these 15 films compete for the Golden Peacock and other awards. Some movies that are part of the lineup include Any Day Now, directed by Hemi Ramazan from Finland, Charlotte, directed by Simon Franco from Paraguay, Godavari, directed by Nikhil Mahajan in Marathi. These films will compete for various categories of awards. We leave you now with images that stayed in news this week. I take your leave. Namaskar.
सांसों में छिपा है ये, पुरखों की कृपा है ये, दिखलाएगा रास्ता। अतियोगानुशासनम, अतियोगानुशासनम। दुनिया में प्रसिद्ध जो, अपने आप सिद्ध जो, रखना इस पे आस था। अतियोगानुशासनम, अतियोगानुशासनम। योगा